Hi, this is John from Chicago. Welcome to my channel. Tiny whoops are fun. There's no other word for them but fun, especially in the wintertime. If you're flying outside in a place that's cold, like Chicago, it's no fun being outside, but indoors is a lot of fun. Today I'm going to bring you 12 different tiny whoops, 6 of them brushed and 6 of them brushless. Go over some of the differences, so to help you make a decision on which tiny whoop you might want to add to your fleet, or several of them. As you can see, I love quads and I have a lot, and I like bringing you the information on it. Today I'm going to show you thrust tests for each of the quads, and also show you some lap times for a small indoor course and a larger outdoor course that I have. So I hope you enjoy the video today. Now for a quick review of the 12 quads I'm reviewing today. This is the trash can. This has a copy of the Mobula 7, but with better camera, stronger VTX, and more crash protection, stronger frame. As a result, it was a little heavier than the Mobula 7, but they put bigger motors on to compensate for it. So this is the most powerful of my quads. It has 200 grams of thrust with a power to weight ratio of 4:1, which is really great. This next quad is the Mobula 7. This is a lot of people claimed it as their quad of the year. It's a fun quad. It's really well made, but the initial offering, the frame broke really easy because of the speed and things. The plastic just wouldn't hold up. This model here is the second version, so it has a stronger frame, but a fun quad to fly. This next one is the Tiny Hawk. A lot of people love this thing. It's 1S versus the last two, which were 2S batteries. But they got a lot of power, a lot of thrust out of this 1S configuration. My guess it's probably the propellers, and then the light weight of this still had a power to weight ratio of 3, which is great for a 1S quad. Then this next quad is LDARC, or King Kong, it used to be called, the GT7. This quad, they made it really sturdy so it would hold up, but they lowered the RPMs of the motor a little bit, so it doesn't have a lot of thrust. It only has a power to weight ratio of 2, but it's the most heavy, it's the heaviest of all the 12 quads here, but it'll hold up, and it's still fun to fly. These next two quads are quite similar. One's the US65 and the other is the UR65. The basic difference is the RPMs of the motor. But these came out last September, and when I picked up my first one, I was really surprised. The thing really flies great. They have a power to weight ratio of about 2.3. You could start to do aerobatics with it, power loops. So it's a lot of fun for a real small, lightweight package. Then we move to our largest tiny whoop here. This is an 8X from LDARC. That's 85 millimeters from motor to motor. So it has the biggest propellers, and it has a power to weight ratio of 2. And it's a lot of fun. I like it outdoors more than indoors, but it'll do both, as you will see. And my next one is probably my favorite for a brushed whoop. The last two here are brushed. The others were brushless motors, and this is a lot of people's favorite. It's the size seems to be right. It's big enough where you could fly outside in the wind, and still small enough where you could fly indoors. So if you were to get one whoop and you're just getting started, this might be the one to get. And it has a power to weight ratio of 1.8, and the pink color makes it easy to find outside. This next one is the smaller offering from LDARC. It's the 6X, which is 65 millimeters from motor to motor, and it again has a 1.8 millimeter power to weight ratio. Then this was my first King Kong, or LDARC. It's called the 6. And the 6 series, when they went to the 6X, the X series, they increased the motor size by 1 notch. So instead of a 6 millimeter motor with, it went up to a 7, but this is the 6. So this was the original. It was a lot of fun, and when they came out with the 6X, I had to buy one and see what the increased power was. Both of them are quite fun to fly, but outdoors the 6 does not do too good. And then we got the Ishin has a series of beginner quads. This is the M80. This is your, for the money, this is your best bet. I paid $32 for this quad. It came with 3 500 milliamp hour batteries, and it also came with a receiver. So for $32, you can't beat it. The thing is, it's not adjustable. The Betaflight will not run on it. There's no connection point, USB connection point for this, so what you get is what you end up having. But it is fun to fly, and for the money, it's great. Then this last one was my least expensive. I built this, I added a camera. It was the Santa Claus Whoop. You take the Santa Claus off and the Lego and stick on a FPV camera with a canopy, and you're ready to go. This cost me $22 to build, and it's fun to fly. The thing is, you're flying it with the included remote, which is a toy grade remote, so it doesn't quite have the resolution, but it still flies good. And for $22, you can't go wrong. So that's my lineup. I'll do thrust tests next to show you what the actual results were for each one. 150, 139, 118, 49, 44. About 38, 90 grams. 36, 33. UR65, 250 battery. 39 to 30. 38 down to 28. 7 grams. 44 grams, drop down to 43. 20. The thrust test showed some interesting things. The trash can had 200 grams of thrust on 2S. That's amazing. That's a power to weight ratio of 4 to 1, which it's nowhere near my racing quads, which are 8 to 10 to 1. But 4 to 1 is pretty impressive. Another thing that I found amazing is the Tiny Hawk. At 1S, it puts out 121 grams of thrust, which is quite a bit considering on 1S the trash can only put out 100 grams of thrust with slightly bigger motors, and the Mobula with slightly smaller motors put out 77 grams. So I think it has to do with the wider propellers. They're optimized for 1S. Another interesting thing was I have 2 M80s, and one of them has 3-bladed props I put on, and the other has 4-bladed. The 3-bladed props, you lose 2 grams of thrust, which is about 5%. And then I also tried different batteries. I had a 550 milliamp hour battery instead of the stock 500, and that gave an extra 4 grams of thrust, or 10% more thrust. Now comes the fun part, actually flying. I'm using the same protocol as they do for the 2019 multi-GP racing. It's the 3 fastest laps. First one to go is the trash can. It had a time of 11 seconds as an average lap time, which is pretty good. The lap times varied from 10 seconds to 14 seconds on all these models. I'm doing a few butt bounces there, and these 2S models are not the best for indoor flying, even though I'm flying them 1S. This is a Mobula 7. It was about a second slower at 12 seconds average lap time. Again, a few butt bounces, but not as many. I think the lighter weight helps a little bit. It just wasn't quite as fast since I flew this one at the beginning of the 12, where the trash can was near the end of the 12. But the forte for these 2S flyers are not indoors, they're really outdoors. Now I'm going to the Tiny Hawk. This is a 1S model, and this was my fastest time for the indoor track. I had 10 seconds. It's a great flyer. This is what for indoors also, and this is what a lot of the people use for racing, is the Tiny Hawk. It's lightweight, it holds up really great, and it's a good all-around flyer. Again, this 10-second time is the average lap time for 3 consecutive laps. Our next quad here is the LD-ARC GT7. It's the heaviest one of the group, and it had an average lap time of 12 seconds. Again, the lap times varied from 10 to 14 seconds for all the models. It's a pretty smooth flyer, but you're hitting some, it's heavy, and I do get some butt bounces. When I make a turn, I need to apply throttle just right to keep the quad from falling. But again, indoors I don't think would be its forte. It's the heaviest, so outdoors would be where you'd want to be flying this whoop. The next one is the US 65. This was a 11 seconds time, so it was near the faster of the quads, and it flies really great indoors. It's one of the lightest ones out there. It's the lightest brushless quad that I've been flying, and it's quite maneuverable. It'll fit through almost any little gap, and it's a lot of fun to fly, as well as being fairly quick. I did not fly the UR65 because it's basically the same as the US 65. Now we're flying brushed models. This is the King Kong 8X. This is the largest of the 12, and it flew surprisingly good on the inside, being heavy and large. It made it through the gaps, but these gates are 2 foot by 2 foot. A lot of times on whoop flying they'll use smaller gates. I've used them as small as 1 foot, where this would not work very good. But it did have a respectable time at 11 seconds, only 1 second off the quickest. My next model here is the 7X, and it flies both good indoors and outdoors. I would say this would be in the running for one of the best starter quads, since it'll do everything for you. It's brushed, and it will hold up good. It doesn't have the OSD on it that the brushless quads have, but it'll just keep flying, and it's fairly light and powerful, and those bigger propellers on the 75 millimeter frame really helps. Next whoop is the LD-ARC 6X. This is ideal for indoors. It has a fair amount of power, and again, it was 12-second average lap time, so it's near the middle of the pack. It flies great indoors because of the small size. It'll fit in any gap you could make, and it will also fly outdoors with smaller winds because it has powerful motors. Then I got the 6 model from LD-ARC. This is the lightest of all the quads, and it was a little slower at 13.3 seconds. There was no butt drops at all on this one. You could fly it nice and slow. It does have the disadvantage is it uses the smaller batteries, the pH 1.25 instead of the 2 pH 2 batteries. But it's enjoyable to fly, and as long as you don't take it outdoors with wind, it'll work great. The next quad coming up here is the Eachine M80. It's a good beginner quad. It has altitude hold on it, so it makes it easier to fly. You're not going up and down as much. It's easier to keep a constant level. I think I just had one butt bounce on the whole 3 flights. My average time again was 13.3 seconds. It's near the upper end, and it does have some problems outdoors because you can't increase the rate to give it more lean angle. But for indoor flying and light winds outdoors, it's an excellent starter quad with the altitude hold. I was surprised how good that works. This is the JJRC H67 Santa Claus whoop. This was the slowest of all of them at 13.7 seconds. And it flies good though indoors. The radio is not as defined, or it's not as precise as a hobby grade radio. You're using the toy grade radio that comes with it. The flickering you see on the screen, I did not see that in the goggles. I think that had something to do with the DVR recording. But again, this is fun to fly, and for $22, it was $12 for the quad and $10 for the camera. It's not a bad. Now I'm flying the outdoor course. The times varied from 12 to 23 seconds. The fastest was the trash can at 12 seconds on the upper left, and the upper right's the Mobula 7, which was 13 seconds. The Tiny Hawk, the lower left, is 14 seconds, and the KK8X and the lower right is 15 seconds. All the quads fly great for these. They all have enough power to go around this course. They're a lot of fun flying outdoors as well as indoors. I have attached a spreadsheet that shows all the specifications and flight times, and I also gave each one a value rating, a durability rating, a camera rating, and a fun factor rating. We're picking a whoop. The spreadsheet should be very helpful. I'll try to make a recommendation, but it all depends on where you're at experience-wise and where you're going to be flying the most. But sticking my neck out, I would say my number one pick would be the Tiny Hawk. It's 1S, it's fairly easy to fly, it flies good both indoors and out, and it would make a good starter quad. Another good starter quad would be the LDA RC 7X. Again, that size, it's the same size as the Tiny Hawk, the 75 millimeter. It flies good indoors and outdoors, and it might be suited a little bit better for a beginner. If we're someone that's flying primarily outdoors, I would pick the Mobula 7 over the trash can, basically because it's lighter, has a little longer flight times. The frame has been improved, so it's not quite equal to the trash can in durability, but it's getting there. And then a last pick would be the US 65. It's a fun quad to fly. If you're indoors, it'll go through most of your smallest gaps, and it's just a fun quad. So there you have it. Please leave your comments and questions below, and thank you for watching.